Hello, this is Mr. Maximus Film, and I'm doing an album review, yeah, of Pink Floyd's 1977 album Animals, continuing the Pink Floyd discography, which I've been really slow with. I'm really sorry about that. I'm gonna try to get these next 5 reviews done pretty quickly. Boom, boom, boom. Um, this is Animals was released in the height of punk rock in the 70s. If you don't know, punk rock was made as the direct response, basically, to progressive rock. Really simple melodies. I mean, I like some punk songs, but I'm not a huge fan of the entire genre, just because of the anger with it all. But what Pink Floyd did at the height of punk rock, the height of when progressive rock was really starting to get a lot of hate and flack in the music industry, they released their most progressive album. Um, it has essentially 3 very long songs, and it's just their most abstract, most progressive sounding of all their albums. Pink Floyd was kind of a different progressive band. They used a lot more simpler melodies, chords, sequences, etc. But this album, while they do retain the simplicity, there's a lot more time changes and movements associated with each of the song. But what Pink Floyd does do, though, in the height of punk rock, is they kind of make the lyrics sound like punk lyrics. Like punk rock lyrics were really, for some bands, political driven, like the Sex Pistols. And what Pink Floyd did is, and cynical, very angry and mean. And what Roger Waters did, I should say, on Animals, because Roger Waters dominates this album, is he makes the lyrics as cynical as punk lyrics, if not more driving and more attacking on social issues, rather than fantasy landscapes that most progressive bands were doing at the time. So he kind of brings in that cynicism of punk in there, which he did kind of have on the other albums, like especially Dark Side of the Moon. But this is really a dark, cynical album. It's kind of a rainy day album too. For some reason, I listen to it almost exclusively on rainy days. And it is a dark album, and it's clearly divided into sections. There's an opening and ending piece called Pigs on the Wing. Very short, 1 minute, 28 seconds long each, about so, I believe. And basically a love song, which are the keys to the album, I read somewhere, and kind of just summarizing what's going to happen. Actually, if you don't want to listen to this album and just want to know what it's about, Pigs on the Wing Part 1 and 2 probably just summarize everything in about 3 minutes or so, which is kind of weird because it's such a long album after that. The rest of the album basically categorizes human beings into 3 sections: dogs, pigs, and sheep. Dogs is the first song, which takes up the rest of side 1 after Pigs on the Wing Part 1. It's about 17 minutes long, and it was the first progressive rock epic song that I ever heard. It was like, wow, at the time, because, I never knew that rock music could be more than 10 minutes or so. And the other 2 songs, Pigs and Pigs, 3 different ones, it's the full title, and Sheep, are about 10 minutes long each. So this was kind of, when I bought this album, it was like, what is going on here? Because the songs were so long. So that album was kind of important for me personally in that regard. And Dog starts out acoustically with David Gilmour singing, talking about how businessmen, they're nasty, they turn their backs on you because they compare dogs to businessmen, and how they die alone with cancer. It's just very depressing, and it eventually gets into some really nice drenched guitar solos by David Gilmour once again. And his guitar solos on Dogs are very drenched. They have a lot of reverb going on them, and they're a lot more thick, in my opinion. But they're fantastic. Some of his best work is on this album, really biting guitar solos. Eventually gets into a much slower part with dog sound effects and a lot more keyboards from Richard Wright. And Richard Wright on the song and most of the album is very much atmosphere. Like, his music is put to the back and uses more for texture than anything. Like, on Wish You Were Here, his synthesizers were like the main thing. Animals are kind of like just the atmosphere, and David Gilmour's guitar work is very prevalent. If that's even a word, I can't even. Anyway, so it gets into a very keyboard-driven thing, though, but the keyboards don't really have any solos. Then it gets into a very long synthesizer part with just atmospheric synthesizer going throughout the entire thing, and just this beat going through it, and it doesn't put a lot on the table. It's uninteresting. It kind of loses my attention of the song. It's probably the one weak flaw with the song. Some more dog sound effects, and then it gets back into the acoustic part with Roger Waters singing. I don't know why he had to sing the reprise of the first part, but he sings. He has a much worse voice than David Gilmour. I haven't really talked about this before, but Roger Waters has kind of this Bob Dylan-esque sort of way of singing, singing more for the lyrics rather than the singing voice. And it's really a contrast to David Gilmour's smooth vocal delivery, and his is more harsh. But anyway, I don't really mind it. The acoustic part again, then it gets into kind of a summary of the entire points of the song, where Roger Waters also said he was trained not to spit on the fan, which is ironic because I think in the Animals tour, the In the Flesh tour, he actually spits on one of the fans out of anger. He was just an angry guy at this point, very angry, very dominating in terms of the lyrics. It's a very good song. I actually really like Dogs. The acoustic feels really nice. It is very atmospheric. David Gilmour's solos are fantastic. The only problem is that middle section. Pigs, 3 different ones, is a much more electric-driven, not ballad, electric-driven song. Gets in with some chords and some pig sound effects going throughout there, and a nice little bass riff from Roger Waters. And I think David Gilmour might have actually done that, to be honest with you. I think in one of the songs here they flipped roles. But anyway, nice bass riff from whoever did that. And then it gets into this is probably the most cynical song on the album, just, denouncing, they compare the pigs to politicians and, the leaders of any sort, calling them pigs, you like the feel of steel. It's a very cool song because Roger Waters sings it. He's very cynical, he's very denouncing of, like, the whole political order that we have in this world. And it's very cool. Yeah, there's not a lot more to say about that. It's a very electric-driven, very nice song. It doesn't go on for too long. All these songs, while they are very long, maybe with the exception of Dogs, they do keep your attention throughout the entire thing. Sheep is probably my favorite song on the album. It starts out with probably the only keyboard solo by Richard Wright, maybe one of the two. I think he has a little one in the hemisphere part on Dogs. But it starts out with a very quiet sort of keyboard solo from Richard Wright. Very quiet, very electric piano with sheep sound effects in the background. And then it just bursts, and then Roger Waters comes with his attacking vocals. The first time I listened to it, it was very hard to listen to because Roger Waters' vocals on that song are particularly horrendous. But you get used to it. It actually kind of works for the song. He's talking about how the sheep are kind of like the mindless masses, and he's talking about, you don't know what's going on. People are doing evil things, and you're not realizing it. It's a very hard rock song, very driving, lots of guitar, cool riffs. One of my favorite. It gets into a slower section with the middle, with a synthesized voice quoting Bible scripture, I believe, and it's very slow. There are a lot of sheep sound effects, but at the very end, David Gilmour has this sort of chord riff that's very awesome, very epic. It's probably my favorite part of the song, probably my favorite moment on the album. Just when he busts out that riff, and it's just amazing. Very epic sort of riff at the end. So very good song, very driving, very hard rock, very up in your face, as I like to say. So then it gets into Pigs on the Wig Part 2, like I said, a summary of the album. So overall, I would give this album a 9 out of 10. Not a lot wrong with it. It's just not my favorite Pink Floyd album. It didn't When I listened to it, yeah, it was interesting because of the songs being so long. But musically, it is a bit darker than the rest. It is a lot darker than all the other albums. It's their darkest, more cynical album. But musically, there is a lot of movements going on. But it's not their best. It's not their best. I would say Wish You Were Here is probably a bit better than this, and then Dark Side of the Moon takes the cake. But it is a strong classic era album. So, Animals. Getting into the packaging. The front is a very grim front of a power station in Battersea, I believe it was. I could get that wrong. It's Battersea or something like that. Very dark, and you see there is a inflatable pig balloon inside some of the smokestacks, and it is a gatefold with a picture on the front, just some more dark clouds. Pink Floyd Animals, some assorted image here. Of course, the cover is done by Hypnosis, who does basically all of Pink Floyd's covers, except for The Wall and the final cut, I believe, are done by Roger Waters himself. So that's the inside, some assorted images from the same power station. Let me get out the inner sleeve. As you guys all know, this is the Oh by the Way edition. The lyrics on the inner sleeve are handwritten by Nick Mason, I believe, which is a nice touch. And the disc is in there. No really extras like postcards or anything like that on this album. Overall, it is a very good album, a very strong album. That's why I'm giving it a 9. Just the only reason why it's not getting a perfect score is that atmospheric section in Dogs is too long. And overall, I dislike the fact that Roger Waters is really the dominant driving force with this. Pink Floyd themselves said this album wasn't a lot of fun to make. It's a very angry album. You know, there's pretty much not any moments of stark beauty that we found on a lot of earlier Pink Floyd albums, which is kind of upsetting. And, you know, it's just kind of angry. And that's my only problem with it. And so, there you go. This is the Animals review. Comment, tell me what you thought about it. We're almost there for 50 subscribers, which is awesome. So subscribe if you already haven't, and if you like my videos. And yeah, tell me what you thought of this. I really like comments. I really like to hear what you guys think. And this is Mr. Maxim's Film. This is Animals. I'll see you guys next time.